We've got one or two questions coming through.
Cool.
So let's deal with Cindy then. And so Cindy's in the interesting situation of actually having submitted now. And she's saying, what activities can you do to keep up the progress while you're waiting for your supervisor to give you feedback on your last task? So perhaps she hasn't submitted yet, but she's in some sort of wait period, I guess. How can we help Cindy?
Okay, Cindy. So yeah, I would just kind of jump into whatever the next thing is. I always say you want to keep that ball rolling. You want to keep the words flowing. So even though you might have to go back and fix the chapter that your supervisor is looking at based on their input, I would just keep going, keep progressing with the next thing. So, maybe you want to give us a bit more details about where you're at. But, I love working with a plan. Like I like to know, what am I working with now? What am I going to be working with in April? Where are we in the year? Gosh, end of year things. What do I need to get done in December? What am I going to start working on next year? I like to actually have that mapped out for myself. And if I do, it means that I always know what I'm going to be doing next. And I've got my consistent plan there for me. Ideally, the supervisor comes back quickly with their feedback. Often they don't because they're so busy. But either way, I need to stick to my plan. Yeah. So that would be, this would probably be a really good time for you to create that plan for yourself if you haven't already done that. And if you have done that, beautiful. You just keep going. When your supervisor comes back, that's fantastic. But you got to keep that ball rolling. It's your project.
Gabby, I think you mentioned such a good point there around planning. What does that look like? And what is the most sort of beneficial way of setting up a plan? It's not about down to the minute and the hour, etc., but just sketch that out for us. If somebody's got a planning issue with their thesis progress, what do you do with them for planning specifically? Because I like that point that you touched on there. And maybe I don't know more about Tupelo, but perhaps the planning aspect is relevant to Tupelo. He's an FNB employee, so studying part-time, even more important to have a plan, I guess.
Totally. So when I'm creating a plan with a client or for myself, for my own projects, I like to start right at the end. So I like to say, when is this thing done? When does it need to get in? And then I minus a week because disasters and whatever. So I always shift the deadline back. So once I know that date, I stick that in my head or on my calendar and I know that that's coming. Then I look at okay, where are we and what else do we have to do? So sometimes that'll just be the writing. So it might be writing particular chapters. And luckily, I think a good thing about a thesis is that it is a very fixed format document. So there are no big surprises. You're going to need an intro. You're going to need a lit review. There's going to be a method chapter, findings, conclusions, recommendations, or discussions, that whole thing. So you have a good sense of what you need to do. So sometimes it might be writing those chapters is what you need to do. Or you might be at the stage that you're still collecting data, and those are the kinds of things that you need to factor into your plans. Little hidden things like getting ethics approval is an important one as well. Logistics around the data collection, I think, is an important thing to factor into your plans, that it might and often does take longer than you think it's going to take. But yeah, I think it's important then, so your end dates, and then I think it's important to sit and critically think, okay, what's left for me to do here? And to create that in a list form, for example. And then, pull up your calendar, pull up your list and say, well, how long do I have left? How long is that going to give me for each of these different things that I need to do? And then it's about mapping out that on your calendar to think, how long is it going to take me and how long do I have for each of these different components that are left in my thesis? That's how we normally work. I was working with somebody yesterday. He's an honors student, and they have to create this long final project. And his deadline is very soon. I think he's due in, 10 days or so. And, just life. We've all had a 2021 like that, I think. Like, work's been crazy, life is crazy, everything is nuts. So we've had to really pull those projects when we're creating our plan. We had to really move those dates forward and close together, and he's under a lot of pressure, but I said to him, it's just the way it is. Ideally you'd have months to do this. You don't. This is the amount of time we have, and so we had to make sure that the plan took that into consideration. There's this ideal world that we live in where we all ideal and we have ages to work on our plans, and we're always going to on our projects, and we're always going to plan long in advance and everything's going to go according to plan. But I think, if nothing else, the last couple of years have taught us that, plans are great on paper, but don't always pan out. So I think even though we've got a plan and we've mapped it out, it's important to be flexible as well. And I think it's important to be self-compassionate about the pressures that we're all under. The last thing I'll say about this is just, I think that those of us who take on further study beyond what's strictly necessary to kind of propel us to where we want to be in life, those of us who take on things like honors and masters and PhDs, I think we're often all high achievers. We're the kind of people who do more than what's just required. We want to better ourselves. We strive for excellence. And I think because of that, we often put a lot of pressure on ourselves. And I think that can feed into kind of negativity around, I'm not doing enough, I'm not making enough progress, I'm not successful enough. And then, of course, the imposter syndrome, I don't belong here, I'm not a student. I really believe that negative self-talk can be really difficult when you're a postgrad student and when you're working on a thesis. I think self-compassion is a really important quality, to just say, I'm here, I'm doing my very, very best. And just to be kind to yourself along the process as well, I would say.